She had 17 rooms, a closet full of diamonds, and a husband worth $40 million. But the first time she felt seen was by a man who fixed his own coffee machine with duct tape. In the gated enclave of Sycamore Hills, every driveway curved like a calculated smile, and every mansion stood like a monument to excess. On any given morning, the air smelled faintly of imported espresso and chlorine from heated pools, and the women, often seen but rarely heard, moved like porcelain figurines across manicured lawns. But on this particular Wednesday, Eleanor Whitford's Mercedes idled in silence at the edge of her circular driveway, and for the first time in 8 years, she didn't kiss her husband goodbye. He hadn't noticed. She watched from the car as Charles Whitford, venture capitalist, country club darling, occasional husband, leaned over his phone while their housekeeper, Rosa, handed him his protein shake. He didn't even glance up, not at Rosa, not at Eleanor. She drove off not toward the gym or the spa, but toward something far less polished. Her chest tightened as the gates opened behind her with a soft, mechanical sigh, like the house itself was disappointed in her. The journey took 38 minutes. Down past the glossy storefronts of Marigold Avenue, through the cracked pavement of Ridgeview, and into the neighborhoods where lawns weren't sculpted, they were survived. Her car looked wildly out of place. She parked 2 blocks away from her destination, partly out of guilt, partly out of instinct. He was already there, behind the counter, wiping a chipped ceramic mug with a rag that had seen better years. The place was called Joe's and Sons, but there were no sons and no one had ever seen Joe. Only Adam. Adam Rivera. A man with hands that told stories, burn marks, scars, a tattoo half removed. When he smiled at her, it was like someone had accidentally lit a candle in a dark room. Not dazzling, not spectacular, just enough warmth to remind you how cold you'd been. "You came," he said, setting the mug down. "I wasn't sure I would," she replied, voice low. "I was." Eleanor sat at the far corner of the cafe. No one recognized her here. No one cared about last names or yacht shares or whether your dress came from Milan. Here, things were simpler, or at least they seemed to be. "What did Charles say?" Adam asked, sliding her a cup of black coffee. "No cream, no sugar," he remembered. "He didn't say anything," she replied, didn't even look up. Adam didn't answer. He just nodded slowly, taking in her silence like it was part of the conversation. She noticed his shirt had a button missing and his shoes were scuffed. There was paint on his jeans from a renovation project he was helping with down the street. Nothing about him said money, but everything about him said presence. The kind that's harder to buy than any diamond bracelet. "He thinks I'm happy," she said. "He thinks the house, the car, the social calendar, they're enough." "And are they?" Adam asked. She looked out the window. A mother was pushing a stroller across the street, laughing with someone on the phone. Her sweater had a hole in the elbow. She looked like freedom. "No," Eleanor said. The bell above the door jingled as a delivery guy entered with a stack of boxes. Adam stood to help him, lifting 3 at once without a grunt. Eleanor watched him, how he moved, how he spoke, how he saw people. Her phone buzzed, a text from Charles. "Dinner with the Parkers at 7, be ready, wear the blue one." That was it. No "how are you," no "I miss you," just instructions, a reminder of her place in his world, an accessory well-placed and obedient. She turned the phone face down. Adam returned, brushing his hands on his jeans. "You okay?" She opened her mouth, but what came out was laughter, soft, bitter, fragile. "I think I'm having an affair with an honest man." Adam didn't smile. "I don't want to be an escape, Eleanor." "You're not," she said. "You're the only thing that makes me feel like I haven't already disappeared." Outside, the sky darkened with the weight of an approaching storm. Inside, Eleanor picked up the coffee he'd made for her and held it between her palms like a lifeline. In that moment, she wasn't a millionaire's wife. She wasn't a socialite or a hostess or a perfectly curated shell. She was just a woman sitting across from a man, wondering what it would cost to start over and whether she could afford it. The storm rolled in slow, the kind that didn't shatter windows but soaked into everything: sidewalks, fabric, silence. By the time Eleanor returned home, the sky was a dull bruise. Her Mercedes slid through the gates like a ghost, returning to haunt the life she wasn't sure belonged to her anymore. Inside, the Whitford estate was immaculate, chilly, quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. Rosa had left early. Charles wasn't home yet. Only the click of Eleanor's heels echoed against the marble floors. She stood in the foyer and stared at her reflection in the mirror above the entry table. Her hair was perfect, her lips painted, her dress cream, sleeveless, tailored, fit like a lie she'd grown used to wearing. Dinner with the Parkers. She had 43 minutes to become someone else again. Upstairs, her closet looked like a boutique showroom: glass shelves, color-coded hangers, scent diffusers. She ran her fingers over the silk of the blue dress Charles had mentioned. It used to make her feel expensive. Now it made her feel packaged. Downstairs again, she poured herself a glass of white wine and sat at the kitchen island, staring at nothing. The hum of the refrigerator felt louder than usual. She thought of Adam, his hands, his silence, the chipped coffee mug that felt more real than her wedding china. Charles came home at 6:42. The front door slammed shut with the confidence of a man who'd never had to knock. "You're not dressed," he said, walking in and loosening his tie with one hand while checking his messages with the other. "I've had a long day," she said flatly. He looked up, not with concern but with mild irritation. "We're already late, you know how Linda gets." Eleanor sipped her wine. "I don't want to go." Silence. Charles set his phone down. "What do you mean?" "I mean I don't want to go. I don't want to sit through another 2-hour dinner where no one listens and everyone pretends to care. I don't want to laugh at jokes I've heard 4 times and talk about real estate values." He squinted at her like she'd just spoken in a different language. "Is this about that therapist again?" "No, a lie, this is about me, us, everything." He paused, his jaw tightening. "If this is about money." "It's not, it's about the fact that you haven't looked me in the eye in months, that you text me more than you talk to me, that I'm drowning in a house with 17 rooms and no warmth." Charles picked up his phone again. "You're being dramatic." She stood up slowly, the wine glass trembling slightly in her hand. "Am I?" He didn't answer, just scrolled through something, then looked back up. "You need to pull yourself together, Eleanor. People are watching. This isn't who you are." She let out a breath that tasted like surrender. "No, Charles, this is exactly who I am. I've just been pretending to be someone else for you." He stared at her for a moment, as if trying to calculate the right combination of words to reset her. Then finally he said, "Get dressed. We'll talk later." She didn't move, and when he walked out of the kitchen, the silence that followed him was heavier than the storm outside. That night she didn't go to dinner, she didn't call anyone. She sat by the large window in the master bedroom, watching rain collect on the glass. Her phone lit up with texts from Linda Parker, from Charles, from someone asking if everything was all right with the Whitfords. She ignored them all. Then she opened a new message thread. "Are you still at the cafe?" She hovered over the send button, then pressed it. The reply came 2 minutes later. "Always." The next morning she packed a small overnight bag, not the Louis Vuitton one, something older, quieter. She left a note, not for Charles, for Rosa. "Please water the plants, and thank you for always seeing me." She didn't leave an address, just the keys. Then she drove back to Ridgeview, not for coffee this time, not even for Adam, for herself. He was sitting on the front steps of the cafe, sipping from that same mug, wearing a flannel shirt and jeans smudged with oil. When she stepped out of the car, he stood. "No blue dress," he said. "No more pretending," she replied. He nodded. "You're sure?" "No," she said, "but I'm here." He didn't reach for her, didn't say the right thing. He just opened the cafe door and held it for her as she walked inside. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was trespassing in her own life. The mornings at Joe and Sons weren't glamorous. There were no imported beans or baristas with art degrees. The tables wobbled, the lights buzzed, and the register had to be hit twice to open. But by 9 a.m., the place always smelled like burnt toast, cinnamon, and possibility. Eleanor stood behind the counter, holding a dish rag that was more sentimental than sanitary. Adam was in the back room fixing a leaky pipe under the sink. He had refused to let her help, but not in a patronizing way. More like a man who understood pride comes not from money, but from earning something with your own hands. A week had passed since she left Sycamore Hills. She hadn't told anyone where she went, not Rosa, not her sister in Atlanta, not even her stylist, who had texted twice to say she missed their Wednesday appointments. Charles had called once, left a voicemail that sounded more annoyed than worried. She deleted it. Eleanor spent her days cleaning tables, refilling salt shakers, and learning how to grind beans without jamming the machine. Adam paid her nothing because she refused to be paid, but offered her something far more valuable: space. At night, she stayed in a one-room apartment above the cafe. The walls were thin, the water pressure was pitiful, and there was no air conditioning. But for the first time in years, she slept without sedatives. One evening, as she was locking up, Adam sat with her on the front steps. The sky was bleeding pink and gold. "You don't miss it?" he asked, not looking at her. She thought for a moment. "I miss the view from the balcony, the way the city lit up like a jewel box." "That's not what I meant." She smiled. "No, I don't miss it. I miss who I thought I was in it." Adam tilted his head. "Who was that?" A woman who mattered. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, you still matter, just not for the same reasons. That night she cried, quietly, in the tiny bed with the uneven mattress. She didn't cry for Charles, she didn't even cry for what she left behind. She cried for the years she'd wasted trying to be the perfect version of someone she never liked. But the world didn't stop turning just because she stepped off it. 10 days into her new life, Eleanor walked down the street for groceries, real ones. She had $120 in her purse and planned to make it last a week. While weighing potatoes, her phone rang. She ignored it. Then it rang again and again. Finally, she looked. Rosa. She answered. Senora Eleanor, are you okay? Rosa's voice was shaky. Charles has been asking, people are calling the house, reporters. A woman came by and said she was your friend, but I knew she was, I didn't tell them anything. I'm fine, Eleanor said softly, I'm okay. Where are you? I won't tell. I'm just somewhere else, somewhere quiet. A pause. You sound different, Rosa said. I feel different. You sound alive. When she hung up, Eleanor sat on a curb and ate a peach from her bag. Juice ran down her fingers. She didn't have a napkin, she didn't care. That night she found a package outside the cafe. No note, just her name written in Charles's handwriting. Inside, a silk scarf she'd left behind, her favorite perfume, and a simple card. Come home. Not I miss you, not I'm sorry, just come home. She put the box aside, not angrily, not sadly, just with a kind of resigned understanding that some men don't change, they negotiate. 3 days later, business at the cafe slowed. A new chain coffee place opened 2 blocks down, all polished steel and marketing dollars. Adam tried to pretend he wasn't worried, but Eleanor saw it, the tension in his shoulders, the way he counted coins before buying more beans. Should we do flyers? She asked one afternoon. Adam shook his head, we don't have the money or the time. I'll make them myself. You don't have to fix everything, he said gently. She looked at him, maybe I want to. He didn't argue. By the end of the week, Eleanor had stapled homemade flyers on every bulletin board from Ridgeview to Mason Street. She offered free coffee on Thursdays and a loyalty punch card she hand-drew with stars. People started trickling back in. Not a flood, but a start. Adam watched her from the kitchen one morning and said, you're dangerous. Why? Because you make people believe things can get better. She looked up from the register, maybe they can. But on the 12th morning, a black BMW pulled up outside the cafe. Charles stepped out. He looked out of place, not because of his tailored suit or his polished shoes, but because he wore the expression of a man who assumed the world would move when he arrived. He opened the doors. The bell jingled. Eleanor froze. Adams, wiping a table, looked up. Charles scanned the room like it offended him. Then he said, are you done playing waitress? Eleanor didn't answer right away. She walked around the counter. Her hands weren't shaking. No, she said, I've only just begun. Charles laughed once, disbelieving, sharp, you can't be serious. She is, Adam said from behind her, calm, not territorial, just present. Charles turned to him, you think she loves you, you think this lasts. I don't know what lasts, Adam replied, but I know what's real. Charles looked back at Eleanor, his mouth open to fire another bullet. But she spoke first. I wasn't looking for someone richer, Charles. I was looking for someone who looks at me like I'm a person, not a purchase. He blinked. For the first time, something in his armor cracked. Then he left. No shouting, no begging, just silence and the door closing behind him. Eleanor stood still for a moment, the air thick with what might have been. Then Adam said quietly, you okay? She exhaled. Yeah, she said, I think I just chose my life. Eleanor didn't cry after Charles left. Not that night, not the next morning. Instead, she swept the cafe floor twice, reorganized the sugar packets, and baked a batch of blueberry muffins using a recipe she found on the back of a flour bag. They turned out lopsided and too dense. Adam said they were perfect. Customers began to notice her, not as the mysterious woman who poured coffee and didn't say much, but as someone who remembered names, who asked questions and listened, who laughed, sometimes too loudly, at old men's jokes about cholesterol and flat tires. She was rebuilding something, not from scratch, she wasn't that naive, but from fragments, from pieces of herself she thought she'd lost in closet drawers and guest room shadows. Adam watched it all the way someone watches dawn crawl across the horizon, slowly, carefully, without expectation. One evening after closing, he handed her a small, paint-stained envelope. "What's this?" "My rent check," he said, "for the room upstairs. I told you I'm not charging you. It's not much, but you've done more for this place than I have in months." She hesitated, then opened the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper with a note written in pencil. "This place was dying before you walked in, now it feels alive again, so do I." Beneath that, a pressed wildflower, crushed but still beautiful. She looked up. Adam was already wiping down the counter, pretending not to notice her eyes welling. That night she couldn't sleep, not because she was anxious but because she was. Her body was learning how to be still without panic. At 2:17 a.m. she walked downstairs barefoot and wrapped in an old hoodie Adam had left on the coat rack. She made tea, sat by the front window, listened to the hum of the streetlights and the rustle of wind through paper flyers still taped to the glass. There was a life outside of the one she'd curated, and she was living it. Weeks passed. On the 34th day of her new life, Eleanor received a letter by courier. Heavy cream paper, embossed with gold. No return address, but she knew immediately Charles. She opened it in the alley behind the cafe. "The house is being sold, the art will be divided, you'll receive your share as outlined in the prenup. I've instructed my lawyers not to fight, you win, Eleanor. I don't know what changed, maybe you just finally saw me, or maybe I finally saw you vanish. Either way, it's done." No apology, no regret, just an ending, and that somehow was more honest than anything he'd given her in years. She folded the letter once, twice, then slid it into the dumpster. She didn't need proof she had won. She had breakfast rushes and burnt muffins and fingertips stained with coffee grounds. She had Adam, she had herself. And now she had a future. By mid-fall, the cafe was busier than it had been in 5 years. Local musicians played Friday nights. College students studied by the back window. Regulars asked Eleanor for her opinion on everything from almond milk to aging parents. She gave it freely. Adam offered her part ownership. She refused. "I don't want a title," she said. "I want a purpose." He smiled. "You already have both." On the 71st day since she left Charles, something happened. She received a call from her sister in Atlanta, Julia. They hadn't spoken in nearly a year. Julia's voice was tight, hesitant. "I heard," she said, "everything from Rosa, from others." Eleanor sat down on the back stoop, where the sunlight hit just right in the morning. "And?" she asked. "I think you were brave. I think I was desperate. Sometimes those are the same thing." They talked for 20 minutes, about childhood, about their father's silence, about how no one in their family had ever walked away from money before, not without shame or scandal. Julia ended the call with a sigh. "Do you think you'll stay there?" Eleanor looked at the tiny cafe, the peeling paint, the cracked sidewalk, the world she never thought she'd find herself in. "I think I already have." That night, Adam cooked for hers. Nothing fancy, just grilled cheese and tomato soup in mismatched bowls. They ate on the roof, under string lights they'd borrowed from the neighbor who ran the flower shop. "You still scared?" he asked between bites. She nodded, "Yes, but it's not the same kind of scared." "What kind is it?" "The kind that comes before something good." Adam leaned back on his elbows. The sky above them was wide open. Stars, real and messy and uncurated, blinked down. "I used to think love was a finish line," he said. "Now I think it's a daily choice." Eleanor looked at him, at the man who never tried to rescue her, only made space for her to rescue herself. "Then I choose you," she said. He didn't reply, he just kissed her, soft, slow, the kind of kiss that doesn't promise forever but makes today feel like enough. Autumn came in slowly, as if testing whether Ridgeview was ready for beauty. Leaves rusted and fell without ceremony. Sidewalks filled with children kicking acorns and coffee drinkers with scarves too thin to matter. At Joe's and Sons, the windows fogged earlier each morning, and the cafe began to smell like cinnamon, nutmeg, and old stories warming up. Eleanor now woke before the sun. Her hands were always busy, grinding, scrubbing, mixing, holding. Sometimes Adam would find her staring out the front window just before dawn, the street lamp catching in her eyes like memory. She never explained what she was thinking, he never asked. On a Wednesday, they hosted an open mic night. It had been Eleanor's idea, scribbled on a napkin during a particularly slow afternoon. The event drew a crowd bigger than they'd expected: poets, students, an old man who read letters he wrote to his late wife. Eleanor introduced each person with a smile and a warmth that seemed to bloom naturally from her. It was the kind of night that made Ridgeview feel like a place instead of a compromise. Later, when the last customer had gone, Adam locked the door and turned to her. "You've made this place into a home," he said. She looked around the sticky floor, the stack of chipped mugs, the crooked sign above the door. "I think I just stopped needing everything to be new." Adam leaned against the counter. "You miss it sometimes, don't you?" "Which part?" she asked. "The money, the A's." She didn't answer immediately. Then, "I miss being invisible to struggle, but I don't miss what I lost to get there." They stood in silence for a moment, letting the truth settle like dust. But the past is never as far away as it feels. One morning, Eleanor was restocking pastries when a woman walked in tall, immaculately dressed, sunglasses even though it was raining. "Eleanor Whitford?" she asked, removing her shades. Eleanor blinked. "Yes, used to be." The woman extended a hand. "Vanessa Coleman from Whitford Ventures." Eleanor didn't take it. "What do you want?" Vanessa smiled, the kind of smile made of contracts and clauses. "Charles passed away last night, heart attack." Silence cracked open. "He named you executor of the estate," Vanessa said, as if discussing weather. "The lawyers will contact you. There's quite a bit to review." Eleanor sat down, not out of grief, but because the room tilted slightly. "Not Charles, not yet, not like this." "He never changed the documents," Vanessa continued. "You were still listed on everything." "He remarried," Eleanor said quietly. "Didn't file, not officially." Vanessa placed a folder on the counter. "Call me when you're ready." She left just as quickly. Adam came out from the back, wiping his hands on a towel. "Who was that?" Eleanor didn't answer. She just looked at the folder like it was a ticking clock. Later upstairs, she opened it. Trusts, properties, investments. She was now once again a very rich woman. Not because she wanted to be, but because a man she once loved had left her with more than just silence. He'd left her his empire, either out of guilt or regret, or some complicated mix of both. She felt a strange weight settle on her chest. Not grief, not relief, just the cold touch of unfinished history. Adam sat beside her on the bed. "You okay?" "No," she said, and yes. He didn't touch her, just stayed near. "I don't want any of it," she said. "Then don't take it." "But what if I could do something with it, something that matters?" Adam looked at her, "Then make it count." The next day, she met with Vanessa in a cheap diner, halfway between Ridgeview and the old estate. "I'll take it," Eleanor said, "all of it." Vanessa blinked. "You're accepting the inheritance." "Yes, but under one condition." "I'm listening." "I'm liquidating everything that isn't sentimental or irreplaceable. The money goes into a foundation, not in Charles's name, in Rosa's. She's the only person who ever made that house feel like a home." Vanessa blinked, unprepared. "That's highly irregular." "So was my marriage." Eleanor slid a paper across the table. "Her terms non-negotiable." Vanessa picked it up, scanned it, and smiled. "You know he never stopped talking about you," she said. "I wish he'd talked to me instead." The foundation launched 6 weeks later. The Rosa House Initiative. Grants for women escaping controlling marriages, microloans for small businesses, scholarships for domestic workers' children. Eleanor didn't attend the press conference. She didn't give interviews. But every morning she opened the cafe with Adam. And every time someone asked if she was that Eleanor Whitford, she smiled and said, "No, I'm just Eleanor." Because now that was enough. On a quiet Sunday morning before the first customer arrived, Eleanor lit a candle and placed it at the center of table 7. It wasn't anyone's birthday, no anniversary, just a small moment, a memory marker. "This was her table," she said to Adam, who stood beside her with 2 mugs of coffee. "Rosa." She nodded. "She came once, right after the foundation launched. Sat here, looked around for 10 minutes, then said, 'This smells like peace.'" Adam placed the coffee beside the candle. "She'd be proud." "She wrote me a letter before she passed," Eleanor said, her voice soft. "Said she never felt seen until I called the foundation by her name." Adam took her hand, not to comfort her but to acknowledge what she'd built, what they'd built. Later that day, a mother and daughter sat at the table. The child played with the wax on the side of the candle. Eleanor didn't stop her. "Some legacies aren't marble statues or bank accounts. Some are just safe spaces where a kid can be a kid and a woman can finally exhale." Years passed. The cafe never became a franchise. Eleanor didn't buy property, didn't trade up her car, didn't go back to Sycamore Hills. But every year, the Rosa House Initiative helped hundreds of women disappear from places where their names were decorations, not identities. One evening, Adam came in late, covered in sawdust. He'd been helping convert a second location, just a small corner spot 2 towns over. He kissed her forehead. "You still happy?" Eleanor looked up from the counter, where a teenage girl was nervously practicing her order-taking voice. "I'm still choosing it." They closed early that night, took their grilled cheese up to the roof, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like autumn. "I used to think my life ended the day I left Charles," she whispered. Adam smiled. "It did, and thank God." Below them, Ridgeview glowed, not gold, not grand. Just real. Just theirs.